What's up, guys? Zach here, Strong Life Podcast, Strong Life Videocast. This episode is going to be with Shane Sweatt, and he's the owner of the Sweatshop Cincinnati, as well as Conjugate CrossFit, and big proponent of, obviously the Conjugate method. So going to be super excited to chat with him. I basically watched a lot of these videos he has on YouTube that I believe were pulled from the powerlifting seminars he does for CrossFit, and basically on behalf of Westside Barbell and Louie. And I'm excited to just, get him on and chat. And of course on the blog is where I'll link up his YouTube channel, and just doing some great stuff. So if anybody's got some questions ahead of time, feel free to post them in this comment section. Victor's saying he's got sled drags and pushes for him tomorrow. This morning I was at my gym and I did a ton of push-ups using that T-grip barbell and a lot of sled drags. So and farmer walks. It was a good body weight sled carry session that I had. And I felt that I needed that, man. So I'm going to let Shane hop in here soon and let you guys kind of cruise in here. James, what's happening, buddy? Zachary Bohm is always on it. Sometimes I wonder if you guys if you work, because you guys are on the Instagrams so much. F-bombs and ab shots. That is a crazy name. Nee, what's happening, dude? Man, haven't spoken to you in 8 to 10 years. So let's see if I could get. I don't want to close out this video. I want to try to get Shane on here. And for those of you guys watching, I pull these audios, put them onto the Strong Life Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. This week I posted up 3 new podcasts, guys. That's awesome. I'm not sure where you live, my man, but I remember last time we spoke, you were going back to nursing school. You should follow Bearded Jarhead. He's also a nurse. He's out in California, and the stuff he's doing is amazing. You see him training outside, chopping wood, deadlifting, power cleaning in parking lots. Shane is here, guys. I'm going to let him jump in, and we're going to get going. Go live. And let's just hang tight for a second, and we're going to get Shane on.
How's it going?
Shane, what's up, dude?
Not a whole lot. Nice to finally make this happen.
I know. I've been following you for a very, very long time, and sometimes I'm like, I get angry at myself. I'm like, man, it's so disappointing I didn't connect with Shane so long ago. And, I've been following you for many years. And so long ago I was with Kelly Starrett. This was a long time ago down in Virginia. And he mentioned your name about how you guys had, I guess your first spot was, the sweatshop. And then I think he said something to the effect of, hey, why don't you just teach normal people how to squat and deadlift and run it as a CrossFit? And they said, or he said that was a real big boost for your business. That like you kind of had this like 2 sides to your gym. You had like the normal section, and from what it looks like, I'm following your videos on Instagram. Looks like things are going well. So you want to give a little introduction to people watching about give maybe a 2-minute bio of who Shane Sweatt is and what you have going on.
Okay. Actually, I started off as an endurance athlete. A lot of people don't realize that. Ran my first 10K at 5 years old. I was a cyclist, did points races, time trials, road races, done triathlons, a lot of different things. I've always been interested in strength, and I was always naturally strong for my size when I was younger. And I really pushed strength from a young age, but I was kind of known as an endurance athlete for a while when I was young. So far now I've opened a sweatshop. A sweatshop is a strength training facility. It's a personal training facility, but we're known for our powerlifters. A lot of people think because I train powerlifting that's all we do, but I'm a strength coach. We just display our strength through powerlifting. But, I work with athletes of all different sports. I've had X Games gold medalists that I work with, Winter Olympics medalists. I work with the military and different forms of government, all different positions, all different types of athletes, from people in the UFC to professional kickboxing, all sports. So it's not just strength training, but, obviously we're known for that. Currently we have world records in the 181 division, 198, all-time world records, 198, 181s, 165s, 148s, 132s, 123 weight classes. We hold world records in every lift, squat, bench, deadlift in total, raw, and in gear. So a lot of people don't know that about our raw lifters, but we do have some, amazing raw lifters as well that are doing some awesome things. So
Strong is strong, right?
Yep, that's right. So as far as business goes, though, I started off, with the powerlifting gym, and then the whole watching CrossFit take off. The big thing with CrossFit was that I saw it to be one of the biggest changes in history in the United States as far as a movement goes to get a lot of people into fitness. So I wanted to take what I've learned at Westside and bring Westside to the masses. And the best way to do that is not with your high-level athletes that a lot of people can't relate to. When you tell someone that someone pulls a 900-pound deadlift, there's no correlation to them. They can't comprehend what it takes to make a 900-pound deadlift. There's so many excuses that come up to why they could never do that they can't relate to it. So I thought if I can take it to the CrossFit gym, get injury rates as low as possible, get strength training as well rounded as possible, get people to move correctly, and I can take my average gym and say if my gym has a 100-pound bigger deadlift or squat than the average CrossFit box, I can show how this translates to the masses. It's not just for the top tier, top elite athletes.
Right. So are you, are your two locations as one, or is it two separate buildings, or how did it start out?
So it started off, it was in two separate buildings that were connected. The buildings were connected, and then I ended up knocking a wall down so you could walk back and forth if you wanted to. There's a doorway, but it was kind of two separate businesses. The business took off and grew really quick, so I had to get another facility. So originally I started with my strength training facility, 3,700 square feet. I added another 3,700 square feet for the CrossFit. Now the CrossFit's in a 9,000 square foot facility on its own, and so it's separate. It's just right across the street, though. So we walk back and forth if we need to.
Right, excellent. So, I don't think I've had too many people on my podcast where we really dig into CrossFit who have this kind of special strengths knowledge the way you do. Because if I walk into a quote unquote normal CrossFit, I'm going to see open floor space, rings, and a lot of straight bars. And with you, and just to give, I'm going to link up a lot of your videos on my blog so people get a real deep understanding of conjugate method. And I think those videos look like they're bits and pieces of the seminars you're doing, which are, the videos were so inspiring to me. I really, it's just inspiring the way you talk about the stuff. It inspired me to implement, more different methods. But I'd love to hear, what does your CrossFit gym look like with regards to the equipment? I'm having this funny feeling that there's a lot of specialty bars and there's a lot of, you're legitimately applying conjugate. Whereas if I look at it, that common CrossFit, I feel like I know my body would get beat up if I was consistently only connected to the straight bar.
Yeah. So I appreciate about the videos. Funny thing about those, they were shot the first time I did a seminar for CrossFit a long time ago. I wish I could redo those. That's probably coming sometime soon. But yeah, so when I built my gym for powerlifting, I built it knowing exactly how I wanted to train. Same thing for CrossFit. A lot of CrossFit boxes that I go to, once I hold a seminar, people spend some time out with me, they're going to want to make some adjustments in how they lay their gym out. I laid my gym out according to the way I want to train with a methodology that I utilize. So all the specialty bars that you'd see at Westside, I have a 90, almost 100-foot rig, and with that rig, I have powerlifting racks. Every 10 feet, I have a powerlifting rack attached to the front of it. So, I have enough racks for everybody in the facility. I have 185 members. I have specialty bars for everybody. I have chains, bands. Actually, the hardest part about the facility was getting our coaches ramped up to speed to be able to deliver a class in enough time, and then teaching our athletes what they need to do, our clients what they need to do to get everything done in a set amount of time. Because we still do a WOD just like just like any CrossFit gym does. Most CrossFit gyms spend a lot of time on a warm-up. They'll do their WOD and a lot of times on a cool down, or they'll work a skill set. We're getting the same amount of volume in WODs, but we're doing our dynamic or max work before in our accessory movements. Yeah. So it's a very fast-paced thing. But yeah, the difference is, I mean, we have dumbbells for everybody. Which is it's huge. There's some cost there, you know. Bands and chains, there's some cost there as well. But the payoff is that our members stay for a very long time. They get good results, but they stay injury resilient. Extremely low injury rate, and we can work around injuries. So, you know, for example, if someone hurts their shoulder, we have safety squat bars. If they have a squat in a WOD, our athletes can still come in and get a workout in. There's no excuse at my gym to miss a workout because we have all the equipment needed to work around that. Yeah. I look at originally CrossFit. The great thing about CrossFit, bare bones, right? Anybody can start one out of their garage. They can do the training out of their garage. Just like if you want to start racing cars, you can build a Honda Civic, you know, or take a stock one and take it to a track and you can run it, you know. But if you want to be a Formula One driver, you have to have the equipment, okay? So the goal is, for me, I would take take a CrossFit box, get your CrossFit box started, gain the knowledge, gain the clientele base, and as you gain it, invest back into your facility and add the special equipment so that you can not, you know, avoid developing glaring weaknesses that helps avoid injury. You can have equipment to work around injuries that already exist. You know, those things are important to me.
Yeah, one thing that I've experienced is, you know, when I started talking to Louie probably in like 2002, is that it made me more resilient. I had come from that bodybuilding background of the 90s of doing 35 sets per body part. And, you know, what I've noticed is people that are coming to train today, whether it's a teenage athlete or an adult, there's so many injuries and mobility issues or just emotional kind of biases that it's actually harder to get them to just grab a straight bar and learn how to utilize it right away. And I feel like without a safety bar, without Swiss bars for benching, you're at a disadvantage because most people just aren't moving the way they should. And you know, that conjugate method and the ability to have these specialty bars gives people an opportunity to start getting stronger, feeling better, getting healthier. And you know, looking at your videos, and like I said, I'll post a lot of them up. I noticed, I mean, I've seen variety in gyms who use conjugate, but in your videos, I've seen tremendous variety, and I just wonder how you map out your ideas. So do you kind of look at and get a sheet of paper and say, okay, here's a list of all the squat variations we could implement, kind of like a brainstorm of how to implement each exercise? Because video I just saw was a girl was box squatting with chains and bands, but the bands weren't vertical. The bands were angled, pulling her forward, making her, you know, isometrically hold position while also squatting, which we did that. I did that this week with my wrestlers, and my back was smoked.
Yeah.
How does your brain operate with organizing the variety of training you implement?
Okay, so, you know, great question. When I'm looking at an athlete, you know, we have obviously all these variations available to us. But what I have to look at is how fast is the progression coming? You know, you first start working with an athlete and they make gains really fast, right? Anytime those gains start to slow down, I start to try to bring more variety in, because that variety will keep that progress going at a faster rate of speed, okay? When I keep that speed up where I like it, I'm happy with how fast they're making progress, strength-wise, speed-wise, things like that. Then I start thinking, what variations can I do that would be easier on the body that achieve the same result? You know, like first, make a recipe. First, get a 600-pound raw squatter. Once you know how to make a 600-pound raw squatter, how can I do the same thing with movements that are easier on the body? Yeah. Longevity. Okay, that's huge for me. Another thing I take a look at is the band's pulling from the front. I have an athlete that drops their chest too much in a squat and I don't like it. If they do not listen to a verbal cue and they're physically capable of maintaining their chest up, put 100, 200 pounds of band tension pulling forward, and they figure out how to keep their chest up real fast.
Right.
Okay.
It's the art of coaching that, I think it sounds like what you could do, Shane, is you're assessing people from when they walk into your gym. Like you look at their posture, their shoulder position. You could see, are there traps popping from their shirt? And like, I call it like The Beautiful Mind, like that movie where the guy he could just see the numbers. And I feel like some strength coaches like yourself have that beautiful mind process with training.
Well, I appreciate talking to someone who understands that, because when I teach seminars, I tell people there's a coach. The minute someone steps in the door and you can physically see that person, coaching started already.
Yes.
I don't need to see an athlete move to start assessing on somebody. One toe's turned out over another one shoulder's dropped over another one.
That's
Their toe pointed in. You can find many things, and I try to tell my coaches to, make a game of it. Who can find the most faults in the person before they even start lifting and fix them? Ultimately, we look at technique, right? What's technique? What are usually technique faults? Usually, it's a lack of mobility or a lack of strength. Someone shows me a perfect air squat, I know they have the mobility for a squat. But if I put 135 pounds on their back and their chest drops when knees cave in, I know they don't have enough strength to maintain position, right? So the number one thing for me is get someone to move perfectly. If I can get them to move perfectly, that means I balance them out for their set sport as far as their mobility goes and their strength goes. And once I get someone to move perfectly, I can really push them forward fast at that point. If they move perfectly, they're going to be as efficient as possible, which means the least amount of wear and tear on their body as possible. And now I just have to elicit the responses out of the body I want, get them to produce more force at a faster rate of speed, or force for longer periods of time, whatever's required of whatever their job is.
Right. It's like a constant reverse engineering of here's where I want them to go, want them to become, here's where they're at now, and you're reverse engineering. And for the coaches listening out there, like the way that knowledge comes is from just such aggressive learning. Like you're constantly studying and learning. And of course, I feel like the best learning is when you're on the ground floor and you're like, you could see people move and you have to figure things out, beyond the books and the videos. Do you guys train high school athletes or not much or?
Yeah, I've trained a wide variety of age groups. The problem that I'm having is actually getting high school athletes in my gym. Kind of interesting. Everybody thinks they have it right until they get injured, and then I'll fix the injury, then they want them back. And, it gets pretty interesting working with high school kids. I've had great success with the very few that I get. But, a lot of schools around where I am already have a strength coach in the facility, or they have a teacher that works as a strength coach. The way I look at it, it's no disrespect. I appreciate anybody that helps these kids at all levels. It's great. But this is what I do for a living. This is the only thing I do for a living. So if you look at some schools that don't have as much money, you have a full-time teacher who's now the football coach who also does the strength work. They have 3 jobs. No way someone's going to be better at all 3 jobs than I am at just one job, Yeah,
it's, this topic comes up very much, and I ask it to a lot of coaches. Some of them are like, a strength coach like you, or, I call guys like you and I a performance coach, because when we say strength coach, we really mean performance, meaning to get you stronger, I need to get you faster. To get you faster, I need to get you stronger. To get you, XYZ, I might need to improve your mobility or incorporate bodybuilding. Or, you've mentioned things about nutrition, which we're going to touch upon, but, I spoke with who's over. What's the coach's name at Cal Strength? Dave Spitz.
I think so.
Yep. Dave said, he goes, hey, we sell out our NFL Combine camp every year easily, but for the life of me, I can't sell a $150 a month high school strength program. So he goes, I'm glad to hear I'm not the only guy having that problem. Now, in the old Soviet Union and now Russia, the sport coach was oftentimes the physical preparation coach, and they had such a beautiful mind towards that. For me, my specialty is wrestling, and I train wrestlers at, from the youth level to the college level, but I can watch them wrestle during a match and see where they get stuck or see stuff, and my brain starts operating. I'm like, okay, Shane can't lift the guy. He's going to be doing a lot of med ball shouldering from the floor, from a box, with a staggered stance, wide stance, like screwed up stances to, bring those special strengths into play. Where you're right. It's no disrespect to anybody, but I always say this is very black and white when it comes to kids. Meaning, what's better for the kid? Let's do that. Let's do that. You're better than me, then you're better than me, and you should train those kids. So that's a tough one because the reason why I ask is you're in Ohio, and certain states in our country have some qualified strength coaches in the schools. It seems like Texas is doing a good job with that. South Carolina is very serious about strength. It's like certain areas, and I know Ohio is very much a mecca for strength and conditioning. So it was interesting to hear like coaches struggle and they just want to help the kids. I want to touch upon something that you mentioned in one of those videos I saw where you were talking about supplements in Russia, and basically like Russia, like the athletes take so much pride in the nation, in their country, that they want to succeed, and they're not worried about who's sponsoring them with like a supplement company. They just want to win. And you had mentioned that they were like figuring out kind of their own protein shakes to make their own supplements. So I've got a lot of old training manuals and translated texts, and I didn't find any information on that. So what was some of the information you came across with what the Soviets were doing with nutrition?
Yeah, I'll have to. I'll find the book and I'll send you. I'll send you the name of the book and everything for you to get.
Awesome.
But basically, they were going over different protein supplements and different carbohydrate supplements you could carry with you as an athlete to make sure that you are fueled throughout your workouts throughout the day. And they would give you the ingredients to exactly make those things. And in all honesty, I don't have the exact recipes in front of me, but I'll get you the name of the book, and I'll actually take a picture and send you some of the paragraphs that it's in. But that's the kind of thing, though. What I've always liked about looking at Russia is it's driven by national pride, right? It's a national team. Over here, you have supplement companies tell you something. Some of them might be telling you the truth. Some of them are not telling you the truth. Product quality varies. Over here, you can find a study that tell you every strength training program is great. You can find them to say that every strength training program is bad. I saw one study say that bands don't work because they use 3% band tension, and there's only a 1% increase in squat strength over a group that didn't use bands. But at Westside, we've never once used 3%. We use 25%, 30%. So, you can find a study for anything. Over there, what I found is whenever I find information from a lot of these Eastern Bloc countries, like Russia, for example, I found the information to be true, for it to work. I implement it, and it pays off. And that's where that's why I tell a lot of people, not that we don't have good information come out of the United States. There's things, but if you're a lower level coach and you're just beginning in this, you don't know what you're looking for to decipher what's good and what's bad information. How is the study laid out? I feel like I should bring in someone like you or someone like me if they want to do a study on a strength training, on a methodology or so. Try what we do, we explain what we do, and then the scientists can put that into practice. But if you have a scientist just say, okay, well, they use bands on a bar, so we're going to have people squat, we'll use X program, and here's what we're going to put on the bar. If they don't know why we're doing it, it's not going to translate into the study.
Yes. Something that I'm really big on, Shane, is how much, if I believe in something, the training works. Even if the training is scientifically not appropriate, but if I believe in it, it has a greater impact on me, and vice versa. So if I don't believe in it, if let's say I have an athlete who does not believe in lifting heavy, he only believes in speed work, he's something like that. Well, then if I lift heavy, his body will almost reject the ability to get stronger. Have you we come across that, of course, in the community of strength training, right? People who are anti-West Side and whatnot. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the psychology behind training, and maybe how you work with some of your athletes with regards to blending the mental and physical, I don't know if the proper word is to get them to buy in or believe in, but, I'm sure people come to you have already bought into what you're doing, but maybe touch upon the psychology behind being, getting stronger or getting results from training?
You know, when we talk about training, I always say that good training should not only build you physically, should build you psychologically as well. If I'm a coach and I lay out training, I should be giving my client, my athlete, a roadmap to why they're going to be better, how they're going to be better. So now anymore, most people come to my facility, they're already kind of bought in. They've already, decided, hey, I'm going to give this a try. They've read certain things about Westside or about me or watched videos. But when I first started, it wasn't that way. And I always, tell people to become a student in their sport. You hear Louis say that all the time. I'll say that all the time. So I tell people if they want to have a facility that really makes an impact, one, do what you do best, delegate the rest. If I wasn't good enough at something and I didn't know it, I would take the person to someone who was, learn from them, so I know the next time someone came through. That way I don't do a disservice to that client that I have. I can build a good reputation in the area with other trainers or people who know more than I do. I can learn from them. Those things are huge. But be an education facility. Every time I work with a client, people are so afraid that if you teach them everything that they're doing, they're going to leave because they don't need you anymore. One, some people can't financially stay long-term with a personal trainer. That's okay. I want them to gain as much knowledge as possible so they can have good success. They'll refer people to you. You'll be just fine, financially. You don't have to try to figure out ways to keep your clients. Best thing you can do, the more information you give them, the faster you have to learn. And if you're a good strength coach, you should learn at a faster rate of speed every year. When you first learn something, when you're younger and you're first new to this, right? Someone would tell you something, you would think about implementing, like, oh, that's a great idea. Now someone gives you an idea, and you think of 20 different ways you can implement it.
Yes.
It's so different, right? So as I'm going along, I'll explain, like, hey, you have a weakness here, so we're going to strengthen this area. This is going to cause you to move differently, correct the problem, or you have a mobility issue over here. So I put together a game plan. I tell them the timeline. Here's, if you do your job, and I do put it back on my client because I'm doing mine. I know what I'm doing. This is not guesswork. So if you do what I tell you to do, you bring the intensity and you are consistent and do the amount of volume that I tell you to do, here's how you can expect it to go along, in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, however long to correct this issue. Every time they see that correction happen within the time that I tell them, they gain a belief in me and a belief in the system. And after a while, people just blankly come up, okay, boom, what do I need? I give it to them, they execute it, and they believe that it'll work. And you're right. Whatever you believe is going to work or not work, you're going to be correct.
Right.
You talk yourself into anything.
Yeah, you can be on a pretty crappy program. I look at, like, when I was in high school and I used to see the football team training, and out of the 4 years I was there, I think 2 years they won the sectionals, the state sectional. And we were in a group 4, which was, at the time, that was the larger school. I don't think there was a group 5, but, I look at the program and everybody was benching, including the quarterback. There was 2 benches. There was a line, 15 guys deep behind the bench, but they would bench, press behind the neck. I saw them doing, like, power curls. I think they would squat, but nobody really squatted all the way down. But they were big and strong, and they believed in their preparation. And they also were so, the coach was so, like, they loved their coach and feared him so much that they played hard for them. So I look at a lot of those things and try to pull lessons as how do I implement that. And even as a coach, there's a little bit of that, at certain levels, the athletes love you, but they also don't want to let you down, and that could propel them to work harder for you. And that means they're coachable. But I think I look at the art of coaching, and I try to find every little percent, every little detail that I could get a kid, to go up a level. So it's that's probably why I really get so inspired looking at your stuff, because I see you paying attention to, it's not just what we're doing in the gym. There's, like, if I could come up with 100 things that could get this person better, I have an advantage over the person that's just training to get them better or just eating to get them better. I look at how much, there's a lot of ammunition we could use,
Yeah, I'm getting pretty close to 90. We're almost at 90 world records, all-time world records broken out of my gym. So that's not age group, just all time. And for everyone you gain, the rest of your athletes don't want to let you down or be a negative mark on that, because they know that there's a reputation. They love being a part of that gym, and you're right, they do want a gun for you, you know. They don't want to let you down. But, you know, when we're talking about training, laying it out for you, you know, I'll give you a quick example. Say on dynamic effort, after we do our dynamic benches, we'll go into some upper back work, all right? So let's say I have a new athlete and we do a pull-up variation. First time we do pull-ups, we do dead hang pull-ups, body weight, max repetitions. This athlete does, let's just say 3 sets, 1 minute rest period. They get 17 reps the first set, 16 the second, 16 the third. So next week we do 8 rep max weight. Then next week I can do chest to bar max reps. We do L-sit max reps after that. Maybe do L-sits and ankle weights and try to match the same reps we did the week before, you know. Then we'll do max chain weight for 8. Maybe we do max band tension for 8. And then maybe I'd take like a mini band and have them do max repetitions. But at this point, now my athlete does 23 reps with a mini band around his neck. Then I'm going to go back to body weight. Do you think he's worried about setting a new PR? No, he just did 23 reps with a band. He doesn't know how many. So the athlete will say, well, how many reps can I do without the band? I have no clue. We'll find out next week. So they come in, they execute to the fullest of their ability, and they can't wait to see. They know there's going to be a PR. I took all the psychological stress off of them. You know?
I find that by utilizing so many variations of each exercise, the athletes get excited. I think it's a very rare type of athlete who, if you said, hey, Zach, if you want your squat to go up, I'm going to give you this 12-week squat cycle. But all I'm doing is squatting with a straight bar. And maybe I'm doing a linear progression, but it's just straight bar. It takes a very rare, unique individual to have the discipline to keep getting under the straight bar. But if it's like straight bar 1 week, safety the next, you know, box with athletic stance. Next week, box with a sumo stance. The next week, you know, box, sumo stance with chains, different bar. You're excited. And I really think people nowadays, not just younger competitive athletes, people nowadays love that. It's exciting to them. They would get bored of same shit, you know?
Well, you know, we're in a different world nowadays, you know, and you look at, sounds weird, when I was in high school, you know, there's no internet, you know, which sounds crazy. Maybe there was, but like nobody, you know, really did anything with it. I mean, right after high school, you had to dial up, take an hour to look at one page, you know. So now there's such stimulation instant, like Instagram. There's always a live video. There's always a new picture. You know, people have Facebook. They have, you know, they can search the web. There are so many different things available to them that people need like a constant stimulation. So someone squatting only with a squat bar 5 days a week and having to go percentages, it was hard enough to find people 30 years ago who had the mental capacity to do that and get something out of it, you know, at a high level. Now, it's almost impossible to find people. They do get a lot more out of constant variation. The thing I like about it is those variations, they have no clue what they can get on those variations. So they come in with an open mind and they try their hardest. They execute to the fullest extent. And by the time they figure out what they should be able to do on different variations, they've been training with me for so long that they've had success to where they believe in the system, and they've picked up better movement patterns, and they've fortified positions better, and that fuels them to break big PRs, and that builds them psychologically, and it hardens them as an athlete. You know, a lot of times it's not even just the exercise selection is huge. Execution is where I find that most people fail. So I see a lot of people say, well, I tried the West Side method and I haven't had great success with the West Side method, or I did for a little while and I started to fail. The problem is with a lot of people, though, is I don't like people to miss weight. You know, my top lifters will miss 1 upper body movement a year, 1 lower body movement a year. You know, we have a 94% success rate in PRs in our gym year round. That's all your accessories. That's your ab and oblique work. If there's conditioning components involved, that includes that as well. So 94% success rate of every lift done year-round, that's pretty big, right? So I can't have people miss weight. If an athlete misses weight, you don't recover from lifts that you've missed as fast as lifts that you've made. So after 2, 3, 4 weeks of missing, they don't recover as quick. When they don't recover, they start to plateau and start to go down, you know? They start to develop negative components psychologically that shouldn't exist.
It's huge.
Yep, you know, and if you miss a weight, basically your stabilizers usually can't maintain position. They get over-fatigued, overworked, and you start to lose mobility. Okay, so for us, I can't have someone miss weight. And training to failure is teaching yourself to fail. I don't want to teach any athlete to fail. I want to teach them to succeed. I want the rarity to be is to fail. If you're one of my athletes and you squat and for a year you've never missed a squat, we go to a meet, your opener, you miss a squat. You're going to turn around and do one of two things. You're either going to ask me for the fix or say, I already know what I did wrong, you're going to give me the fix. And I'll say, you're right, you're fine. Because you'll know as one of my athletes that I will never ask you to do a weight that you're not capable of. Doesn't mean it's not going to be extremely difficult. It just means if you do your job, you're fully capable of it. But when all those athletes work to failure, when we were younger and you're training, you'd gain 5 pounds a week for your bench for 3-4 weeks, then you'd lose 20-25 pounds. You didn't get 20-25 pounds a week in 1 week. Your body just said, hey, look, since you're not intelligent enough to lay out your training properly, I'm going to protect you from yourself and your central nervous system degrades, right? We didn't know that back then. Now we do. And so when these athletes work to failure, a lot of times they'll turn around to the coach and they'll say, they miss their opener and go, man, it's just one of those days I just don't have it. Why? Because some days they have it, some days they don't. They've never figured out that their central nervous system is trying to protect them from themselves, so they don't get it. So psychologically, that athlete's done in that competition. My athletes know that they just have to do their job, that the numbers are there, that I don't ask them to do a number they're not capable of. It's science, mathematics. It's not guesswork. We take them to a meet with stuff they're already capable of doing.
Are you, how do you track numbers? Are you using a software system at your gym? Or do you guys just go old school Excel, or how do you organize?
So, what's interesting about that, we have one of my friends has just been working on some software now. Hopefully they're going to be releasing soon for people training Conjugate Method. I kind of go with like Lou on this. Louie will tell you if it means something to you, you will remember it.
Yeah.
You'll remember it to T.
I agree. Like, Shane, this is, I don't mean to cut you off, but like, I work with predominantly high school and college athletes, but I'm always shocked that when they're like, how much should I go? I'm like, dude, I remembered what I squatted. And then before the next squat workout, I was thinking about it 2 days before I'm coming in. And I tell them, I go, I need you to get obsessed about this. But if they didn't get it, I'll be like, let's just write down your best number. At the university I'm at, they want us using paper. And then at my gym, we use Wodify. So we record, track it, and I teach them, hey, if you're feeling like you want to break a PR today, let's go see what your best is. Let's look in the software, pull it up. Here's your PR. You want to break that today, or do you want to break a rep max or a 1 rep or a 3 reps? So what do you guys use at the CrossFit? I'm sure you have some sort of software management there, right?
So at our CrossFit gym, we have competitors and we have not, people who are not in a competition program. On there, we do have they get like a Google Doc that they get with all the extra work that we would utilize for the day, and they have places to put PRs and things like that. And they can track them and keep them online.
Yep.
So most people do that online. It's kind of up to individual. But when we bring people in, we explain to them at the beginning, like, if this is important to you, you will remember this stuff. If you're someone who has a hard time remembering it, create a document on your phone, bring paper, however you manage it best. We leave it up to the athletes. Now, I am working on some things because I do want a better system. I want something that goes in that people can constantly track and put in themselves, because some people just are not good at that. But what you'll find is the higher level the athlete, the better they are about their numbers.
Yeah, they remember it, yeah.
Well, it means something to them. So that's why I try to instill in people who, I tell people, like, everybody's here for the same thing. It's for quality of life. I don't care if you want to be a world record holder or you want to be healthy and have your kids see a healthy way to live and be disciplined about their lifestyle. It's the same thing. It's quality of life, right? So, I tell people when they come in that, if you say, well, you're looking at the best athletes in the gym, I'm never going to be like that. You don't have to be like that. But what you do have to do is you have to execute everything in your life to the fullest of your ability. Live in a manner where you are disciplined and you're getting the most out of everything that you do. If it's not worth doing, well, just don't do it. But if you want to lose weight, you want to be healthy, you want to gain some capacities, then track this stuff. I try to explain to people, just, if you're someone who never wants to compete in a sport, you still want to gain as much capacity as you can. Those capacities make life easier as we get older. They allow us to do things. In my lifetime, I would never want to be limited to what I do for fun by what I can physically do. If I want to hike, I don't want to look at a hike and say, man, I would love to do that. I'm just not physically capable of it.
Right.
I want to I want to be able to do anything that I want to do, and everybody should look at life like that. So, I try to find something that connects to that individual. What do they like to do? Or what is their favorite hobby or thing? Or what is something they want to get into they never thought they could? Let's get them there and get them capable of doing those things. You don't have to be the best athlete in the world. You just need to be capable to do anything you've ever wanted to do.
We're not done yet, Shane, but just for the people in the middle of listening, how do you prefer people to reach out to you for, seminars and stuff? What's the website or websites they should reach out to find more out, and also for people listening, this will be on iTunes.
So the easiest way to get a hold of me is actually my personal email is shanesweatt@gmail.com. So ShaneSweatt@gmail. So the last name is 2 T's in it. Or if you look up Sweatshop Cincinnati on Instagram, you can direct message me there. Those are probably the easiest ways to get a hold of me. If you just want information about this stuff, I have no problem sending in any kind of information you want. I'm kind of like Lou in the sense that people want to call and talk to me, I'll talk to anybody at any time, a little more old school like that,
Well, that stuff's great. So, I saw on some of the photos, and you had mentioned earlier, you'll do some stuff with like government agencies, military. What are some of the, I don't know, let's talk about military. I just spoke with Matt Wenning, and a couple other my buddies do stuff with military, and it still seems to be, the military still seems to be doing a lot of running, a lot of calisthenics. People don't know how to lift with all this information, like show me how to deadlift, and people don't set up right. So I'd love to hear of some common themes that you're found you need to implement when you're working with military.
Okay, so when working with military, you get to see the same issues: knees, hips, low back, shoulders. Those are all the things that you always see. A lot of times it comes from a lot of the problems that we're seeing that when we do selection phases for our athletes is we're looking for a physical and a psychological component. But I do believe a lot of times there's a better way to find that they have what it physically takes without breaking the athlete. Because if we break the person, we break this individual, they still have to go back to their job, which is still in the military or border patrol or police department or whatever it is. They have to go back to their job. And if now they're not as effective with the current job they're doing, they're still going to put other people in harm's way or themselves in harm's way from that. Or they have a negative outlook, and when someone else says, hey, how was it? They have a negative response to it. If we do things that take care of them when they go through a selection phase and they're not broken afterwards, they're going to be more likely to be more positive about it, and they're actually still usable in the job they have before they come there. But one thing that we're looking at is it's easy to put a ruck on, have someone put a pack on and go, and it's easy to push them to the limit, to a breaking point, and see where they're at and see what they have psychologically. The problem is once we figure that out, that people still train the same way. They still push themselves by doing ruck walks. I look at sled drags. I can produce force for longer periods of time, but I don't have the vertical compression by having the heavy pack. Because a lot of people will start to break position down. They'll start to bend over, put more pressure in their knees, change the position of their hips. Now their hips are behind them instead of underneath the pack the way it's supposed to be. So I can do a lot of different variations and different good morning variations, Zercher variations, sled drag variations, where I can control the volume where I want and stop it before the body ever breaks down. So what I want to look at is what's the type of work they're going to do? How much weight do they have to carry over what kind of distances? Now I want them to be able to do that with their body maintaining perfect position the whole time. And if they can produce more force for that amount of time in those perfect positions, then they can now cover the distance faster.
Right. I spoke to some guys that were I'm not going to mention what branch they were in just for confidentiality, but they're like, listen, they're like all that training I did through selection. They're like, I've never swam when I was deployed. I've never swam. The longest distance I ran was 50 feet to 50 yards when I'm sprinting from cover to cover. And they go, yeah, sometimes we have to ruck a distance, but they're like, it sucks, but we just do it. And these guys, their whole training was basically powerlifting based. They would, squat, bench, overhead press, deadlift, and they were all about being strong, these guys. And it was interesting but they're like selection is about trying to weed out the weak, and they're like you have to train for that selection, and in that branch of the military, it was like it tended to be a lot of the swimmers and triathletes, and I think like surfers and wrestlers were the guys
Yeah.
tend to make that stuff. But once they got out, they're like, I'm fucking lifting heavy. That's what they were all about. I've just found that even I'm 42 now, I still lift heavy for me, and it keeps me. I feel better. Box squatting with bands, floor pressing with more chain weight keeps my shoulder healthy. Doing bodybuilding work for the arms to keep the joints healthy. Like I feel better. I'm not sure how old you are, but I feel like our population of men in their 30s and 40s, they look 10 years older if they're not training. They look aged.
Yeah. I'm 42, so I feel the same way. I run into people where I think they're 10 years older than me, and they're a few years younger than me, or the same age as me, and I think they're quite a bit older. Not that I think I necessarily look young, but across the board, we get used to being around people that train real hard. So
Yeah.
we think that's the norm, and then when we go outside of our environment and you meet people and you find out how old they are, it's kind of shocking a lot of times. But yeah, the stronger I am, the better I feel. That's always how it is. I travel a lot all over the world for seminars, and if I let myself get weak, I start to have back issues.
Yeah.
If I'm strong, I don't have to worry about anything.
What? Let's tackle this. This will probably be kind of near the end, Shane. You've got, what I call a lot of mileage on the body. I started training in 1989. Whether I training, so incorrectly back then, it's just a lot of mileage. And you mentioned earlier, using conjugate method to preserve an athlete's body. And that's something I take very seriously, especially at the collegiate level. We have kids on scholarship, and it's, we need to preserve this athlete's body, especially in wrestling, but any of these sports. So, any changes you feel have been significant to your own training? You're in your 40s, working around injuries, new equipment that you've, put into your gym that you feel have been very crucial?
Do you care if it's a little long-winded?
No, go for it. Usually, I tend to answer one question with like a 20-minute answer.
All right, cool. So, it's a series of things. Like you said earlier, we're always looking for if you make a 1% change in 1,000 different things, it's going to be a completely different outcome, right? So, looking at it, yeah, I get massages every week, okay? That's extremely important, but I also have tried all different types of massage. I figured out what works for me. I know I'll wake up in the morning, I'll feel my neck a certain way, and I know which therapist I have to go to. My shoulder feels a certain way, I know which therapist. Sometimes it feels different, I have a different therapist for everyone. It feels different. I can tell exactly what I need when. I look at, as far as fixing the body goes, you ever know sometimes you go to a certain massage therapist and they'll work a muscle out, it loosens up, but it tightens back up over the next few days. Well, usually that's because there's a joint dysfunction there. And if the joint dysfunction doesn't get fixed, that stress on that muscle will go right back to the same spot. So if we fix that joint dysfunction 100%, then it'll allow the rest of that limb to loosen up, okay? And it'll retain any kind of gains that you get out of massage. So first I always look at get 100% function out of the joint. There's John Clint from Westside Barbell, he's great at that for massage. But I started, I look at what he does, and then I want to take it, into training as well. Is the first thing I want to do is optimize an athlete strength-wise, so that way they move perfectly. If I have a glaring weakness, their body breaks position down. If I have a mobility issue, body breaks down. I want to take it as deep into the joint as possible and work its way out, and so that's kind of how I look at it for movement. Recuperation phases, we look at the Russians develop recuperation phases, where we do high repetition movements, 50, 100, 200 repetitions at the end of a workout. I take the weakest group in whatever I'm doing. So if I'm doing a deadlift, if I have an athlete, their spinal erectors are the weak link, one their glutes, one their hamstrings, at the end of their strength work for that day, that's the area they're going to flood. So if all three of us pull 700-pound deadlifts, but your hamstrings are weak and my glutes are weak, your hamstrings are they're most likely to get knotted up. They're most likely to get tears, not recover fast enough. After a few weeks of that, they're most likely to get damaged. So if they're the weak link, I can flood blood and nutrients, and that that brings nutrients and hydration in that area. But I bring extra volume in that area. That extra volume over time will build leverages, right? Balance the body out. So I always make sure that every workout is ended with the recuperation phase on the weakest link that was used that day. All right, so that's huge. But being consistent on it. Hydration, nutrition, being on point with that consistently. Obviously that's massive for our, recovery and to stay healthy. Consistency, just being strong. The stronger we are, the better we can maintain positions. But there's some simple things like, we know nutrition, we know hydration, but I do think that paying more attention to the way that our joints move and articulate to make sure we have full function of them is huge. And I think that a lot of us don't do that. So I think that's one area that most people can really bring up. But then the other thing is, when we're looking at our programming, understand why we're doing what we're doing, okay? So, for example, we mainly use 1-rep maxes. And what I'm going to talk about is programming. So it's simple, okay? It's something we're already doing is our programming. But understand why we choose the programming that we choose and how it can affect us. So I touched upon earlier that if we work to a failure, we're not going to recover fast enough, right? So I don't want to miss lifts. When I don't miss lifts, I can recover faster, which means I can handle higher volume of training. All right? Our body doesn't perceive mental physical stress any different. So I want to learn how to handle psychological stress as well as possible. All right? We talk about overtraining all the time, and I'll tell you that I believe that 99% of the time people are not overtrained. I believe they're underprepared and under-recovered.
Right.
I think that's huge. If I look at it and I think that an athlete's overtraining, what do I need to do? Cut their volume back. But if I could actually get them to recover faster, now I can keep their volume the same or increase it, and they can make progress faster. So I'm always looking at how to get someone to recover quicker, how to improve them psychologically, how to make them a better person so they have less stress. Look at Tiger Woods. The minute Tiger Woods had his problems, I said, he'll never be the same. And people are like, well, that's a little harsh, don't you think? No, he became human. He was inhuman to his competitors,
Yes.
and they didn't believe they could beat him. The minute he became human, they went on the attack when he was on a low point, and it made it very hard for him to come back. Sure, he won some stuff since then, but he's never been the same, right? So if we can get people to take a look at their life and make good decisions for themselves, learn how to handle stress they have coming in at the best possible manner, try to be consistent on their eating and hydration, those are huge. But we do 1-rep maxes majority of the time. Sometimes we'll do doubles or triples. But we mainly, almost 99% of the time, it's a 1-rep max. And I'm not saying there's no place for a double or triple, but when you look at a traditional 5x5 program, when's the last time you've seen someone do a 5-rep max where all 5 reps were perfect? They usually break down a little bit each rep. So in my mind, I truly believe that you can only do 1 rep completely perfect. And after that, it'll start to degrade at some point. So, you look at like a squat, our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes, biggest muscle groups in our body. They're big drivers. Our stabilizers in our hips, not nearly as big, not nearly as powerful. They can maintain a great position for 1 rep, but 5 reps, they start to get overwhelmed by what the quads and hamstrings can do. So then you see those knees cave in, the hips shoot out the back, people start to bend over more in the squat. So if they do 5 reps and 1's perfect, that means 4 reps are imperfect. They're solidifying improper motor patterns instead of solidifying perfect motor patterns. 1, obviously, that's a problem. The other thing that happens is that you're overstressing the stabilizers for 4 out of 5 of those reps, which is going to cause a mobility loss. That's a problem for me as well. So that's why I like 1-rep max. I can build bigger motor units. Our body only adapts to the heaviest stress placed upon it, physically and psychologically. I can then not lose as much mobility as the guy next to me doing maybe a different program that would elicit a little bit of mobility loss. So while this athlete has to spend twice as much time on mobility that I have to, I can spend more time in getting more volume in and progressing. We do our dynamic work for our volume. And you hear Louis talk about this all the time, but it is true. We get our volume underneath some maximal loads. It means our position never breaks down. We can solidify perfect motor patterns. Our stabilizers don't get overwhelmed. And I think the final thing really is has always been a big taboo in the world of strength training is conditioning. People want to avoid it like the plague. And I'll tell you, I don't care if you're a heavyweight, super heavyweight, or on down. If you don't do it, you're lazy. Okay, plain and simple. the better conditioned athletes that I have, the higher volume they can train. The better condition you are, the faster you recover. The faster you recover, the more volume I can give you. The more volume I can give you, the faster fixes we can make, the faster you make increases in performance. Plain and simple. The best athletes I have are the best conditioned athletes I have.
You know, if so you're describing like a lot of, there's many pieces of the puzzle to stay healthy, but you hear a lot about train optimally. What you just described in this like 5 minutes, Shane, was like not just train optimally, but prepare optimally with your nutrition, your sleep habits, your minimizing stressors coming into your life. I always tell the athletes, I go, so, guys, your body, if it's stressed, it's going to have a hard time. But let me ask you guys a question. I'll say to the college guys, they're 19, 20, 21. They start dating, right? What's harder, guys, that squat workout or that last argument you had with your girlfriend? They're like, damn, dude, that argument I had with my girlfriend destroyed me. They're like, I lost my appetite. I didn't want to eat. And my focus was off. And I said, that's why I talk to you guys about lifestyle. Is you've got to do as many things right as you can. Lights out at a certain time, phone shut off at a certain time, breakfast before you show up versus something from this little snack bar, the foods we eat, the friends you hang out with. You were mentioning environment and culture. That made me think of, as much as it's a movie, when Rocky goes with Apollo back to LA, or when he goes to Siberia. He, optimized his environment to, training camp. So I look at a lot of those little pieces of the puzzle. It's cool. Somebody crossing service just said, you guys, building strength is a large puzzle, and you guys are listing all of the pieces that make up the bigger picture. So I got a couple minutes here, Shane. I'm going to head to pick up my kids from school. Is there anything I didn't ask you that maybe you wanted me to ask you, or people don't normally ask you a question about?
Not really. I'm actually, maybe sometime we can do this again, because, you have a great reputation. I haven't, got to spend time around you or anything, but it's nice because I think that we can dive into a lot deeper things maybe next time, because I have someone who can actually ask questions and we can bounce stuff back and forth, which is really nice because it's a rarity for me to be able to do that, So it's like one of those times you get a chance to where it's like you speak a foreign language in a country and you finally meet someone who speaks your own language and you want to get an opportunity to talk with them, really nice. But I think that we can, hopefully maybe we can do this again sometime, and, people can get something out of it that's a little bit different. Hopefully, you think about some stuff later on that, we can go deeper down the rabbit hole and some things. I would say this, one thing that, is not talked about often is how people could become a high-level athlete. We have to go very deep down a rabbit hole, and every time you go down that, and when you go, the deeper you go, you gain some pieces over here, but you lose some pieces over here, And a lot of times people, will bash a lot of these coaches, out there that have spent their whole life work doing this stuff. But I think it's sometimes people feel like they're not up to speed, so they have to bash other people to make themselves feel better and stuff. I'm sure, from talking to you, I'd give a strength coach any amount of time I can give them. I help strength coaches anytime I get a chance. A lot of these people that people get worried about were easy to approach and talk to. I've had a lot of clients come in and say, I was told for years not to come to you, and after I've been here for a few months, God, I wish I would have came sooner, everybody here is really nice, and for some reason they thought they were not nice because we move a lot of weight or get things out of people. For all the coaches out there, I guess the biggest thing I really want you to know is if you have a high-level coach by you, trust me, they want to help you. Come in, talk to them.
And my thing is, very much, I'm sure what you do, Louis always says this, don't come to observe, come and train. I think it's hard to respect and really learn. Anytime somebody interns with me, and Instagram's telling me I have a minute left. I didn't know there was a time limit on this, but I always say, like, you learn through the training. So I'm sure you'd like that too, if they don't just come to talk, but come and lift with us, come and train with us. You're going to maximize the effect of your learning.
I'll make this real quick. My goal always when I met Louis was try to learn what he learned in 70 years and 30 years, then evolve it. That's the point, is that we want to evolve, so don't reinvent the wheel. Reduplicate before you innovate.
Cool. Shane, this was awesome. I appreciate you. Everybody listening. Strong Life Podcast. Sorry about that. You hear me, Shane?
Yep.
This will be up on YouTube, and this was great, man. I appreciate it. We're with Shane Sweatt from the Sweatshop, Cincinnati, CrossFit Conjugate. Talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.